Peace, family, and welcome to this edition of the Drapetomaniac Podcast. This is Ayapo Yapa, the HDIC, that is, the head Drapetomaniac in charge. And we're here to have conversations on how to get off this plantation.
Excuse me, I'm sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to make sure that you listeners are listening to the Drapetomaniac Podcast on doayamedia.com. You are, right?
Now, quiet as it's kept, I typically write my podcast before I deliver it. And that stops me from stammering so much because I stammer a lot. And it also helps me to keep my thoughts in order. But this particular podcast, I don't have any kind of a script or anything. And I just want to say a few things that are on my mind. The biggest thing is that at some point, I'm wanting our people to start looking at the bigger picture and looking at what's happening around us. There are a lot of us who do, but then at the same time, there are a lot of us that I feel have tunnel vision. And by that, I mean that we're thinking in terms of just us. And I actually touched on this in the last podcast, where we're just looking at ourselves, but it doesn't have a context of everyone else. I listen to Antonio Moore and Yvette Carnell sometimes, and there's really no disputing their data. And I'm totally in agreement with the goal, which is reparations. That's what I started my YouTube channel on. But I'm in totally in agreement about reparations, and especially with the facts and the figures that they come up with. However, where I split is their solution, because the solution that they present is to basically use the levers of power to somehow, as a group, descendants of enslaved Africans. I don't like the term ADOS, only because in spirit I agree with ADOS, but as far as the semantics of it, I don't like referring to my ancestors as slaves. They were enslaved. No one went to Africa and got slaves. These were free people. I'm not saying everybody was a king and a queen, but you're talking about free people who were enslaved. And even those who were quote unquote slaves in Africa, whatever country it was, their definition of slavery or enslavement was different from the American or the colonial or the European definition of slavery and the way the slaves were treated, or the way that the enslaved were treated. So that's the only reason that I say descendants of enslaved Africans instead of American descendants of slavery. That said, I agree with the goal and so on, just like I said. I agree with the data. I mean, there's no disputing that. But when it comes to the conclusions as to what to do about it, I'm looking at the bigger picture of what's happening in the United States right now, which is that you have this situation that's going on, pandemic. Whether you believe that it's real or whether you don't believe that it's real, what's happening because of it is very real. And with that, you have people who are losing, black and white, people of all nationalities now. You have people who are losing their businesses, they're losing their homes, they're losing their livelihoods, they're losing their jobs, and some of them are losing their minds. And as of April of this year, they did what actually was, to my understanding, the third stimulus package, but this stimulus package pretty much addressed not only businesses but the citizens also. And in that stimulus package, which was in April, they moved $4 to $5 trillion. It goes back and forth as to whether it's that much. And that's like leveraged money, but they moved 4 to 5 trillion to the top 1 and 10% and used 500 billion for the rest of the citizens and gave one-time stimulus check of $1,200. Now, in every other country, you have universal health care, you have a universal basic income, UBI, and the businesses were taken care of, the employees were taken care of, everybody was taken care of, right? Here, you get a one-time check in April, and then you're just on your own, while at the same time using socialism for the top 1 and 10%. Now, the reason I'm talking about this is, and I've said this so many times, but I think it bears repeating. You have a government that sees everybody, that sees all the common people getting sick, tired, thrown out of their house, everything I just named before. And from April to now, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, going into December, 7 to 8 months without doing anything, literally, not figuratively, literally doing absolutely nothing for the people as the country is burning down around them, both literally and figuratively. Now, what's happening to everyone is happening to white people too. And I guess that's my biggest point in all of this. When we're talking about, we're going to take back what's ours and we need to put pressure on them. We need to withhold our vote. We need to, make all these demands and stuff, and power concedes nothing without a demand and so on. We don't have any power in this system, number one. And number two, this system was designed against us. It works actively against us. It was designed against us. It works actively against us. And the system in general, the system of white supremacy, hates us. Okay. So you have white people to whom was always given privilege within the system. And as I said in the last podcast, you have the government basically telling them to go to hell, telling them to kick rocks. And so what are we going to say or do that's going to move them to do anything for us? And they won't even do anything for their own people to whom they have bestowed privilege from the time that they step foot here. And that's been my point before. That's always been my point. And if you're looking for like more stimulus to come, it's not coming, because look at what they're doing. After April, when they did the stimulus, everything basically started going sideways 2 months after that. They didn't do another stimulus package. And right now, they're not even really seriously discussing doing another stimulus package. But they didn't do another stimulus package, and they went on vacation 3 times since the time that you got that $1,200. And now they have gone on vacation 3 times. They just left on vacation again. And as I like to say, I've said it in other podcasts, I'll say it here again. It's like you hiring someone as a lifeguard, and then they look out in the ocean and there's 100 people out there drowning, and they have the power to save their lives. Okay. And instead of helping them, they just go home. They literally see these people drowning. It's their job that they were hired to do to stop them from drowning or to save them. And they literally just turn around and leave and go home for the evening or whatever. That's what's happening. The only time that they came back and had an emergency session, if you remember, was when they had to do something about the post office. And the reason that they came back to do something about the post office was because it affected them, because elections were coming up. And so it was going to affect them in the way that they could get voted for or not voted for or whatever. And so the only thing that they came back for was to vote on some relief for the post office. And then after they did that, they hauled ass again. They didn't stick around and try to do anything for the people. Okay. Now I'm talking about the people overall, but what I'm trying to impress and what I keep trying to pound home is that they are letting white people think like this. So what if someone can explain to me why it's logical to think that they would do something for us because we're making demands, and they have their own people making demands and out in the street and fighting and rioting and everything else. Tell me, and threatening to withhold their votes and their support and so on. What in the world? Someone explain to me why they would do anything for us who are now, with the exception of Asians and a couple other groups, we, as far as the bigger demographic goes, we are the smallest demographic now. Latinos have passed us. And if you really look at it, Latinos were the ones they were catering to all through the election. And they were telling us to kick rocks. As a matter of fact, they weren't telling us anything. You know, they put Kamala Harris up there like that's supposed to be. She's not even black. But, so anyway, my point is, and will always be, that at some point we have really got to start looking to separate from this system, because this system isn't geared toward us. It means us no good. It's not going to do anything for us. And they want us to hold out hope. They want us to work with the system or within the system, because they need our energy. They need our talents. They need our abilities. They need our attention. They need us, but just in so much that we do something that we're doing something to keep the wheels greased while they step on us, but we don't get anything. We don't get anything out of it. And we won't get anything out of it. Cause one final time, and I genuinely apologize for just repeating myself like this, because you could actually rewind it, but if they're letting their own people crash and burn, there was just a new study that came out that showed that suicide rates are going up. People are becoming more addicted. We're talking about white folks now, becoming more addicted and hopeless. And it's called, and they're calling it death by despair, because there are so many people in despair right now, because they're starting to come to the realization that the government really isn't going to do anything for them or save them. And I'm talking about white people. Therefore, us, who is this small demographic who is hated anyway and who the system was set up against, if they are not going to pay any attention to their own, to whom they have always bestowed privilege, why, oh, why, someone please tell me why, or what makes anyone think we can say anything or do anything that's going to make them listen to us or to do anything for us. So that's about it. This is actually more in the nature of a rant, I guess. But it's something that I think about every day. It's something I talk about almost every day. Not almost every day. You can ask my wife. I literally talk to her about this every day. It's just a broken record, because I'm trying to figure out the mentality, the psychology behind it. And I know part of it is that everybody wants to feel like they have some kind of power. And there's nothing wrong with that, because a person should want to feel like they have some kind of power. No one wants to feel powerless. No one wants to feel marginalized. No one wants to feel like they just have absolutely no control or no voice at all. But my point is that within this system, we have no power whatsoever. None. Because quiet as it's kept, the average white person doesn't have any, if they're not one of the 1 or 10%, the average white person has no power in this system. None. So how much worse is it, or how much more marginalized are we? That said, our power lies outside of this system. Once you leave this system, that's when you find your power. I'm just finishing up the autobiography of Frederick Douglass, and he was explaining all about his days as an enslaved person. He was calling himself a slave, but he was always a free man. He was just enslaved. But anyway, he was explaining how he would go to work and the slave monster would take his wages, and he couldn't do anything about it. He was getting whipped. He was watching others of our people whipped, and all these things were happening to him. He couldn't even come and go as he wanted to. And then eventually he escaped. He left. And after he left, that's when he found his power. That's when he became an individual. That's when he became autonomous, was after he left that situation. And that's what I say, is we have to leave this situation. It doesn't necessarily have to be physically, but you have to leave it mentally, and have to be willing to, and this is so hard. I know it's hard. But at some point, we'll have to be like a husband or wife that's leaving. They're like, just keep everything. Keep the cat, keep the dog, keep the books, keep the toilet, keep what's in the toilet. I'm just out of here. Keep the money. I just want out so that I can be free and start living my life in peace. I passed that point a long time ago. And I urge our people to seek ways to do that. You do it first mentally, and then eventually it may or may not be physically. But after you leave mentally and you get unconnected, you disconnect yourself from money and so on. And I understand you need money so you can live and so you can survive. I'm not talking about like just being a vagabond. I'm just saying that if you get rid of your debt, then that frees you up, because debt is enslavement, So once you get the mindset of leaving, this system, of separating from this system, then you'll be surprised at what your own mind will come up with in terms of creative ways to continually separate yourself. It's not going to happen all at once. It's like trying to go from one point to another that's a mile away. You don't just take one long step that's a mile long. It's step by step by step. And so you really will, because I was surprised myself at the steps that happen, and the creative things that happen and start happening within your mind and with your actions that help you to separate once you have determined that that's what you want to do. And as much as it hurts, they can keep whatever it is that they have, again, it's hard, but I'm like this. If our people get reparations, great. We're entitled to them. We deserve them. We should have them. If our people get reparations, good. If our people don't get reparations, I'm out of here. If we do get them, I'm out of here. In other words, I'm out of here. I'm done. I am done. And as my beloved sister Ajali says, I'm done with hell. I'm done with hell. And I hope that eventually, if you aren't already, you will be too soon. So I guess that's about it. That's my rant. And I thank you for listening. This is the Drapetomaniac Podcast, and I'm Ayapo Yapa, the HDIC, that is, the head Drapetomaniac in charge. Wishing you peace and blessings, safety, security, and sanity through separation. And until next time, I'll see you on the run.
And thank you again for listening to the Drapetomaniac Podcast. Tune in next week at doiamedia.com. DOIAMEDIA.com. And again, we'll catch you on the run. Peace.